Hi, this is Michael Buffer, and welcome to the BoxHard Podcast.
Hello, everyone. This is Mikey Garcia.
This the monster from the swamps, Regis Rougarou Prograis.
Hey, what's up? This is King Carlos Molina, former IBF World Champ.
This is Michael, the Bounty Hunter, 2012 Olympian and your people's champ.
This is Charlie Edwards, flyweight champion of the world.
This is Fast Eddie Chambers, and you're listening to the BoxHard Podcast with my main man, Joey Coastman.
Hello everybody and welcome to episode 230 of the BoxHard Podcast. I'm your host Joey Coastman. I'm joined as ever by the infamous, the elusive Mr. Ayaz Sumra, Southampton's finest. Ayaz, how are you?
I'm very good, Joe. Yourself?
Very good, my friend. Very good. Let's dive straight into the review part of the show. I'm hoping to whiz through this week's show. Not feeling the best this week. Let's go through things as quick as possible. The review part, let's start at the Caesars Palace in Dubai, a place I wouldn't mind being actually right now. Let's start with one of the fights. I think it was on the undercard. I'm not quite sure it was the main event, but it was a humongous upset. Former IBF world champion TJ Doheny, he got in there with a guy called Ayaz Baluta. The guy had a record of 12-2, obviously coming up against TJ Doheny, who was in one of the best fights of 2019 when he boxed in the unification against Daniel Roman. He came up short, but he came up short to Danny Roman. No shame in that, but he's lost here. He's lost unanimously, I think it was in the end, for Ayaz Baluta. Doheny had a point deducted himself in the 8th and final round. A total upset. No way to dress it up. It's going to be one of the biggest upsets of 2020 already. I'm going to put that out there. Of course, there's another real big upset that we've got to mention from last weekend as well. But that's it for now. That's Dubai out of the way. Let's now move to a card that I believe happened in Poland. It was with Polish heavyweight, friend of the show actually, Artur Szpilka. He returned to the ring. It was a fight here at I think it was at cruiserweight. It might just have been inside the heavyweight limit actually, but he's lost a lot of weight. He's trimmed right down, and he took on a guy called Serhiy Radchenko, who had a record of 7-5. It was a majority decision over 10 rounds in favour there of Mr. Artur Szpilka. There's been lots and lots of talk about this fight for some reason. I don't speak Polish, and I've been translating a few tweets, but I'm not sure he deserved to win, or I'm not sure that it should have been a majority decision or something like that, because I'm hearing a lot of people discuss a rematch. I'm hearing a lot of people say that the scorecard was really bad. I'm not quite sure why. If anyone did watch that, fill us in. Artur Szpilka, all the best to him. 24-4 now. Moving out now to the Manchester Arena in Manchester, Lancashire, United Kingdom, starting with the undercard. Let's start with Robbie Davies Jr., friend of the show. Another win for him. That was win number 20. He's now 20-2. A points win over 8 rounds against Damien Yapur, who's now 16-17 with 3 draws. 8-round points win there for Robbie Davies Jr. I think that's probably his first fight back since the loss to Lewis Ritson. Also on the bill, Jack Cullen picked up a win. He's now 18-2. A TKO in the second round against Thomas Reynoso. Jack Cullen, like I say, 18-2. Also on the bill, Anthony Fowler, friend of the show, now 12-1. A TKO in the very first round against Theophilus Tete, who has a record now of 19-8 with 2 draws. He was down 4 times, Tete. None of the knockdowns really seemed to hurt him too much, but something was up with his shoes. It was real bizarre, real bizarre, especially on a stage like that. His shoes were slipping everywhere. It was very, very, very strange and quite unexplainable, and quite a unsatisfying way to win a fight there for Anthony Fowler. Tete was annoyed at the end. Fowler was annoyed, and a lot of us watching at home were annoyed because it shouldn't have gone like that. Very strange, bizarre circumstances. Welcome to boxing. Hughie Fury was on the bill. A good win for him, 24-3. He knocked out Pavel Sauer in 3 rounds. Pavel Sauer now 11-3. I remember they were supposed to box on the Monaco card that Hughie Fury pulled out of on Fight Week, and I was quite surprised to see them get the rematch on. You know, the rescheduled bout, if you like, not the rematch, but to reschedule it again with Pavel Sauer. You know, he brings absolutely nothing to the table. You know, I can't really believe that for the past, I think that November card was the Monaco one. So that's like, you know, that's like he didn't box him in November, didn't box him in December, didn't box him in January or February. So for about 5 months, Pavel Sauer has been the only name on Hughie Fury's mind. It just seems quite bizarre, you know. It's a waste of time, really. And he got him out of there, and in good fashion, like I say, but nothing to be surprised about there, you know. Hughie Fury should have always blown a guy like this away, and he really did that. Zach Parker, a brilliant win for him, 19-0 now. He beat Rohan Murdoch over 11 rounds, actually, a TKO in the 11th round. Murdoch now 24-2. It was for the vacant WBO Intercontinental Super Middleweight title. Murdoch was down prior to the stoppage. He got up, and then the referee waved it off. A great fight, you know. I've got to say, the start to the fight from Parker was a little bit laboured. He seemed to be a little bit flat. He seemed to even perhaps, you know, look to me anyway, a little bit tired after about 3 rounds. I was quite shocked at that. But, you know, Murdoch was a tough guy. He was better than I expected he'd be. And in the end, a good knockout win for Zach Parker. As I expected, I predicted he'd stop him. I just didn't think it'd go 11 rounds. He got the win. And, you know, that is all that matters. He'll gain experience from that. I think they're talking perhaps he may have broken a rib or something early on in the fight, Zach Parker. It's not the first time he's battled through an injury and come out with a win. This time certainly deserved. So yeah, all the best to Zach Parker, really. Real bright future once again. I think that was some kind of eliminator. I think it was number 1 against number 2. Murdoch, I believe, was number 1. So he should be right in position now to box the WBO Super Middleweight World Champion, who is, of course, Billy Joe Saunders. And moving up the card once again, the main event, Scott Quigg. He is retired on the back of this. It was his 40th fight. His record, if he does indeed stay retired, will be 35-3 with 2 draws. John O'Carroll, the underdog on the night, now 18-1 with a draw, half the amount of fights as Scott Quigg. In the end, an 11th round TKO for John O'Carroll, friend of the show. I was very, very pleased for him. I'm just going to run through the rounds real quick here. The first round, Carroll made Quigg miss wildly time and time again. He seemed real sharp in there, Carroll, right from the off, and he picked Quigg apart at times in that first round. He completely outdone him in all areas. You know, you could see the confidence in his work. He was real focused as well. Brilliant stuff. He was having a lot of success with his straight shots. Round 2, a better round from Quigg. He got on the front foot. He pushed Carroll back, but sometimes he'd be in range, but he'd feint too much, and Carroll would just flick out a jab and unsettle Quigg. So the dynamic of the fight totally changed in the second round, but Quigg didn't really capitalise on that position. So for me, 2 rounds to 0 for Carroll after 2. Going into round 3, another Carroll round. I was real impressed. He seemed to be much sharper than Quigg. Like I say, Quigg's timing did seem to be a little bit off. I like the way Carroll would throw a lead hook and then immediately change the angle and just move away. You know, the single shots were working for him. Round 4, another round for Carroll. The cleaner of the exchanges. Round 5, Jono cut his right eye. Scott Quigg did have some success in the middle part of the round, but again, Carroll was able to outshine Quigg and steal the round for me. Carroll was also the guy with the quicker hands in there. It was quite evident to see. Quigg, if anything, looked a bit shocked even, I'd say, after 5 rounds. Round 6, a better round from Quigg, but again, for me, a Carroll round. Round 7, again, Carroll was just beating Quigg to the punch time and time again. Round 8, pretty much more of the same. Round 9, At that point, I just kind of thought to myself, you've really got to give it to Quigg, you know. I remember in that Valdez fight, he showed heart like no other. And again, in this fight here against John O'Carroll, he showed no quit whatsoever. He's almost a little bit too brave for his own good, you know, but it just wasn't good enough. You know, it makes you wonder if that stint in the States had come back to bite Quigg in the backside, you know, because his career's been a little bit hit and miss over the last couple of years. A clear round again for Carroll in round 9. Round 10, better from Scott Quigg, who got read the right act in between rounds, but still a Carroll round. And then the 11th and final round, the towel came in. It was a hard decision for Joe Gallagher to make in the corner. I think probably because he probably knew that this would be Quigg's last fight, should he have lost, you know, and he still can hit hard, you know, he still had a puncher's chance, I guess. And Joe Gallagher, you know, like I say, it took him quite a while to throw that towel in, but, you know, I'm not excusing what he did. I'm not quite sure what I'd have done in that position, but it's very hard for us sitting here, you know, looking from the outside in. You know, Joe Gallagher knows his fighter better than we do. Joe Gallagher, you know, has a brilliant bond with Scott Quigg, better than we do. You know, he knows him, they're friends, they're almost like father and son. You know, they've been through lots and lots of ups and downs, and it was a hard thing for him to do, to throw the towel in, but he did in the end, and we shouldn't criticise him. You know, he did the right thing. Better late than never, they say. That is it for that card there. I just want to come to you, Ayaz. Did you want to say anything about any of those fights on that card there?
I mean, like I said, good win for just elaborate on your point. What good rate win for John O'Carroll. I mean, they have announced that Scott Quigg's actually retired. I've read something from Dan Rafael, but good luck to Scott. I mean, he's accomplished everything, so good luck in the future.
Absolutely. And moving out now to the Barclays Center in Brooklyn, New York, USA. What a shocking result the main event ended with. Let's start, though, with the undercard. A few wins for prospects on the bill. Zachary Ochoa now 21-1. A unanimous decision over 8 rounds for him against Angel Sarinara. We had Efia Jagba, the undefeated Nigerian heavyweight, now 13-0. A TKO for him over 9 rounds against Razvan Kajanu. Kajanu was down in round 8 and 9. And, of course, the big upset, the main event, Adam Kownacki, friend of the show, 20-0 against Robert Helenius, 29-3. Kownacki was down in the 4th round. That was where the TKO came. A humongous upset. I said it on last week's show. I said I don't even think I'd be staying up for the fight. It was that much of a mismatch. And I'm holding my hands up, you know. Boxing is the most unpredictable sport in the world. It really, really is. You know, the fight itself, though, Kownacki was in total control. You know, he really was. He was in total control. Like I say, I did end up staying up for the fight in the end, and thank God I did, because the upset was just incredible. Just like that, a heavyweight contender disappears. You know, the rematch is something that Kownacki absolutely must go for. But like I say, you know, until the actual stoppage came, Kownacki was the guy in control. He swarmed Helenius at times. Helenius was under serious pressure, and he wasn't dealing with it well. It seemed like the writing was on the wall, and then bang, in the 4th round, once again, Kownacki was on the front foot applying the pressure. And then the pair were trading off, and down went Kownacki, but it was ruled a slip, which was actually the wrong call when we saw the replay. And, of course, Kownacki got straight back up. There was no 10 count, of course, because it wasn't ruled a knockdown, and Helenius went straight on the attack, and because he must have known that he landed a credible shot, you know, he went straight on the attack, like I say. He swarmed Kownacki, and he dropped him instantly, and then Kownacki did get back up and beat the count, and again, Helenius just morphed into a man possessed, and you know, he just poured everything out there. It was all adrenaline, because prior to hurting Kownacki, Helenius himself looked done, to be completely honest. He looked finished. The one bad thing about Kownacki, of course, we all knew this, is that he gets hit too much, but in saying that, he is one of the most exciting fighters in the heavyweight division. So ultimately, he just couldn't keep Helenius off of him, and the referee stopped it as he was taking too much punishment, too many clean shots. Like I say, a shocking upset. I mentioned earlier on about TJ Doheny losing. This is probably on the same level, really. I mean, Doheny was a world champion with only 1 loss. you know, he lost his world title last year. He's still very much in his prime, it would seem, and he lost against a guy who we've never heard of, whereas Kownacki, a guy coming up, looking excellent, you know, I actually thought his style would have been all wrong for Helenius, and Helenius, a guy we've seen many times before, certainly at the tail end of his career, and then he just switched it on, you know. He actually looked in good shape. A lot of people are saying he looked in good shape. I'm kind of copying that, but I think it was the haircut, you know, it was the haircut. He trimmed a bit of his hair off, and he actually looked quite decent, you know. He scrubs up well, Helenius, and the Nordic Nightmare certainly was a nightmare for Chris Arreola. The rematch needs to happen. For Adam Kownacki. The rematch needs to happen because Kownacki is now stuck between a rock and a hard place, it would seem. Moving out now, though, to the Toyota Music Factory in Texas, USA. Over here, just one fight to mention. Evan Holyfield, the son of Evander. He's now 4-0. A unanimous decision for him over 4 rounds against Dylan Carlson, who is now 1-1 with a draw. So, Evan Holyfield picks up a little win there. But that is it, though, for the review part of the show. Just before we wrap up part 1, the final thing to do is to welcome guest number 1. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the former IBF World Title Challenger. It is, of course, Mr. Callum Johnson. Callum, welcome back on the show, my man.
How you doing?
Very good, my friend. How are you?
Good. I'm good, man. I'm good.
Excellent. So, Callum, we last spoke back in March of last year, so it's pretty much been exactly a year since we last spoke. Obviously, at the time, you know, you'd recently boxed Beterbiev. You'd just knocked out Shawnee Monahan in the States. You had some real momentum, it would seem. What has kept you out the ring for over a year now?
I got injured. I got quite a bad injury on my shoulder, which kept me out, but you know, it's one of them things that, what can you do? You know, I sort of, story of my life or story of my career, innit? You know, start, stop, and I finally sort of getting some momentum, getting a bit of a name for myself, and then, you know, I got another stumbling block, but it's something that I'm used to dealing with and something that I have dealt with, and you know, I'm back now and I'm ready to go again, and hopefully no more stumbling blocks.
I'm touching wood for you right now. Yeah, you know, it's good to put that, of course, behind yourself. Again, since we last spoke, we haven't spoke since one of our other Brits challenged for a light heavyweight world title. What did you make of Anthony Yarde's efforts against Kovalev, Cal?
I thought his effort was great. I thought he'd done well, like you say, but I mean, it's one of them. I thought he'd done well, but I thought Kovalev wasn't that great at the same time. You know what I mean? So I mean, I don't want to. I'm not here to sort of bad mouth. I mean, I thought he'd done well, and what can I say? I think he did well, but he just wasn't good enough. Pretty similar to me, I suppose.
Yeah, I guess so. Also, one of the great fights, really, of 2019, we got to see the unification between Beterbiev and Gvozdyk. What did you make of that fight, Cal?
I mean, Gvozdyk was like kind of a favourite in a lot of people's eyes, but I could never understand why. And people was asking me my opinion, and I told everybody I'll stop him. And everyone was like, I just couldn't see what people, you know. I think with my fight with him, it seemed like as if no one gave me any credit, and they just sort of dismissed him, if you like. But I always thought he would go for a Gvozdyk like that, and you know, although he got to rounds 10, but for me, I mean, he never really looked like he was. But Beterbiev always looked comfortable and in control, and it sort of just controlled the fight from the opening bell, really.
Yeah, like I say, it was a great fight. So on to yourself. I mean, your next fight's now been announced. It will be against Igor Mikhalkin for the EBU European title. May the 2nd is the date in Manchester on that white Povetkin undercard. The date's finally been locked in. I mean, there were many rumours of different dates originally, which card it was going to land on and stuff like that. Why was there such a confusing period?
I'm totally honest, mate. I have no idea. It was going to be March the 7th, possibly. Then I knew it was going to be March the 28th. Then I didn't really hear anything else, and then I sort of found out it was going to be May the 2nd. But at the end of the day, it's only 5 weeks, and it's got to look at the positives. I got an extra 5 weeks to work on things, and get even stronger and even sharper and be five weeks more prepared. So it's probably a blessing, really.
And what do you know about Mikhalkin? Obviously, his claim to fame in the pros is obviously the loss to Kovalev, but, he showed a lot of resilience in that fight. He's a tough guy.
Yeah, he looks a good fighter. It's a tough fight. It is a tough fight. And like as you say, against Kovalev, he only got stopped by the cut. I mean, he was competitive in that fight. The bits I've seen of it, he looked like he was doing well. I've not watched too much of him just yet because, we're still quite a way away, but I know he's a Russian, he's a southpaw, he's been European champion before, and so I'm up against it at the end of the day. But that's the kind of thing that will bring out the best of me, and I've been up against the very best there is. So I'm sure he's got nothing to offer that I've not already seen or already felt, and I'm going in there to do a job, and that's all there is to it, really.
Yeah, I remember watching his fight with Kovalev. You're right in what you're saying. Obviously, the cut ended things. He has got a good chin. He can box. Not a massive puncher, but, a very well-rounded boxer, if you like. And another little factoid for those that may not know, he beat Beterbiev 3 times in the amateurs.
I never knew that. I never knew that myself.
There you go. And without obviously looking too far ahead, Cal, if you were to get the win here, you become European champion. Can you see yourself defending the belt a few times, or are you just hoping to get right back for a world title shot as soon as?
Honestly, that I really don't know. I mean, I would like to obviously jump straight in for a world title fight again, but if I have to defend it, I'll have to defend it. I mean, it's at the end of the day, I've got to win it first. It's no easy task, and I've got to solely focus on that and not really worry about what's after, because without winning it, nothing's going to come after anyway. So, I've got to concentrate on what I've got to do.
And my last real question for you now, a little bit of a fun question, if you like. At light heavyweight here in Britain, we've got 4 guys world ranked with the sanctioning bodies. Where would you rank those guys from 1 to 4? I'm guessing you'd put yourself at number 1. Who'd be 2, 3, and 4 out of Yarde, Craig Richards, and Josh Buatsi?
Josh Buatsi, then Yarde, then Richards.
Interesting.
There's fighters in Britain that's better than Craig Richards anyway. That's not ranked there anyway. So I wouldn't put Craig Richards at number 4 personally, but there you go.
Okie dokie. And just finally, Callum, like I said, we haven't spoke for quite a while. It's been a frustrating period. If you've got any closing words just to our listeners before we let you go, say whatever you like, my friend.
Nothing really. Just tune in May the 2nd, and hopefully I can put on an explosive display for everybody again, and hopefully you can see some knockouts, get that power off.
Get that power off, you always do. Listen, Callum, it has been fantastic catching up with you once again. Best of luck for May 2nd in Manchester, and we'll hopefully catch up sometime after.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Okay, now it's time for part 2 on this week's show. This part, of course, the news part of the show. Ayaz, what you got for us?
Yes, Alexander Usyk will face Derek Chisora on May 23rd at the O2 Arena.
Yeah, it's going to be on pay-per-view. Obviously, because of that, there's been a lot of backlash. I just want to say, the fight itself, no way in the world is it a pay-per-view fight. But the thing is, with these, not all, but some of these pay-per-view cards, the whole card is the pay-per-view thing. It's not just the one fight. So when Anthony Joshua fights, no matter what's on the undercard, it's a pay-per-view. It's a pay-per-view night. It is what it is. But with this, I think Eddie Hearn, will put on a real big undercard, because I think he knows in his heart of hearts that this isn't a pay-per-view standalone fight here. No way. So I think there'll be a juicy and beefy undercard, but he hasn't announced anything yet, so I'm not going to start criticising it just yet. If the undercard isn't that good, then yeah, I'll be criticising it. But the fight itself, a good fight, a decent fight. We're going to find out a lot about Usyk, because Chisora, if nothing else, is very durable. But I can see it being a little bit like Tyson Fury in the rematch against Chisora. I think Usyk's going to show too many angles and just start really picking him apart. He's not as big as Tyson Fury, of course, but I can still see him picking him apart. Usyk very much in his prime, you'd have to say, and Chisora, no matter what anyone says, he's past his prime for me. Those better years are behind him. He wouldn't go 11 rounds or 12 rounds or whatever it was with Vitaly Klitschko nowadays. No way.
Oh, yes. Okay. Clarissa Shields will face Marie-Eva Decay to unify the WBA, WBC, IBF, and WBO Super Welterweight title.
Yeah, for all the belts at 154. Clarissa Shields hanging around at 154, actually. You know, I thought she was just going to pick up the one belt when she boxed in January in Atlantic City when I was at the fight. But, yeah, she's trying to get... more belts while she's at the weight, even though I think she's kind of a little bit depleted being at that weight. You know, she's a phenomenal fighter. And someone said online that if she was to win this fight, she'd have more belts than she'd have fights, which is just incredible. If that's true, I haven't checked it out. But yeah, all the best to Clarissa. Obviously a friend of the show.
Yes, David Benavidez will face Roma Angulo for the WBC Super Middleweight title on April the 18th.
Yeah, I think Benavidez was supposed to box someone else, and then I don't think I'm making this up, but I think he was supposed to box someone else, and then for whatever reason that fight didn't end up taking place, and then he boxes Roma Alexis Angulo, who of course is the guy that upset Anthony. What's his name again? Anthony. Is it Anthony Sims Jr.? Yeah, the Eddie Hearn prospect, the guy from the States. Yeah, he upset him on an undercard recently. So, yeah, off the back of that, somehow he's managed to get himself in line to fight Benavidez. But Benavidez should smash him to pieces, really. So, yeah, don't really see him putting up much of a threat to Benavidez. Benavidez, one of the best 168-pounders in the world, bar none, really. He's one of the best, one of the top 2 or 3.
Yep. Jose Ramirez will face Victor Poster for the WBC and WBO Super Lightweight title on May the 9th at the Save Mart Center.
Yeah, trying to get Jose Ramirez on the podcast at some point in the near future, hopefully before the fight. Yeah, it's been rescheduled. Obviously, it's going to be a cracking fight. I was really looking forward to it the first time round when it was supposed to take place in, I think it was Japan or China. I think it was China, yeah. And then, of course, it got postponed due to the coronavirus. So, yeah, all the best to both guys in that one. It's going to be a good fight, you know. I've said it before, Ramirez at times has struggled with boxers, and Victor Postel's one of the best boxers at 140, so that's no given for me. A lot of people disagree, but for me, that's a tough fight for Ramirez.
Philip Hrgovic will face Jerry Forrest in a heavyweight clash on the undercard of Progress vs Hooker, April 17th. Daniel Yunusanov will also be on the undercard where he faces Julius Indongo.
Yeah, I particularly like that fight there for Yunusanov. Obviously, we know an Olympic gold medalist, a fantastic amateur, turned pro. At times, he hasn't really looked that special, you know. But I like this fight against Julius Indongo. Obviously, Indongo, a man that's been a world champion, a guy that's got a ton more experience than Yunusanov in the pro ranks, and that could be Yunusanov's undoing here. Indongo, for all the disrespect he gets, he doesn't really deserve it. You know, you look at his resume. He lost, of course, to Regis Prograis in bad fashion. He lost to Terence Crawford, but he's not a bad fighter at all. And if Daniel Yunusanov isn't on his A game, he loses this fight. And I actually think it's quite a, what's the word I'm looking for? Quite a the opposite to a calculated risk. I think it's a big risk boxing someone like Indongo. You know, he's massive for the weight, and he can be quite a danger man. So that is a tough fight there.
Okay, Joe Goosen has announced that he will now be training Kubrat Pulev. Interesting,
of course. Joe Goosen, world-renowned trainer. He's going to be with Pulev in the corner for the Joshua fight. He's a character, Joe Goosen. I got a lot of time for him. He knows his boxing as well, so if he can add anything to that fight, then that would be interesting. But all the best to him and Pulev.
Lee Selby will face George Kambosos Jr. in IBF Lightweight final eliminator on May 9th at the Motorpoint Arena in Cardiff. Joe Cordino will be also on the undercard, and is James Tennessee vs Gavin Quinn and Chris Billum-Smith vs Nathan Foley.
Yeah, let's talk about Lee Selby against Kambosos Jr. Lee Selby, obviously a former world champion at featherweight. He's moved up 2 weight classes because he was killing himself to make 126. Fair enough to Lee Selby. A brilliant fighter he was. He was a true world-class fighter at 126. Some people like to, disrespect his reign and stuff like that. He was a good fighter, man. He beat some real good fighters in his time as a champion. He moved up 2 weight classes because he was killing himself to make the weight. We were all expecting a stronger, a fitter, a bigger punching Lee Selby, but since he's moved up, he's had the 2 fights, one against Omar Douglas on the undercard of Eubank and DeGale, and to be honest, he didn't look good that night at all. It was a close fight, way too competitive. He then boxed Ricky Burns, another fight which I don't think he won super convincingly, So this is a tough fight here against George Kambosos Jr, just coming off a win against Mickey Bay, former world champion. And George Kambosos Jr has been on the show once before. Nice guy, but yeah, he's been sparring hundreds of rounds with Manny Pacquiao, and this is a tough fight. He's young, he's hungry, and he's got quick hands and the rest of it. It's a tough fight that for Lee Selby, but you'd have to. I'm kind of going a little bit here with heart as well. I'm siding with Lee Selby to perhaps win that one just because of the experience and stuff like that, and the fact that he's boxing back in Cardiff for the first time in 6 years.
Yep, and that's it for the news.
Okay, thank you very much, Ayaz. Right, moving on to the preview part of the show. We're going to start here, a card that takes place on Saturday at the Brian Glazer Family JCC Auditorium in Tampa, Florida, USA. Very strange venue, but friend of the show, Wilkie Campfort, I believe he boxed for the world title against Jamal Charlo, I think. Anyway, he is back here, 25-3. He takes on Christian Santa, who's 16-14 with 2 draws over 6 rounds. That one there. Also on the bill, heavyweight Lemroy Thomas makes a return to the ring in an 8-rounder against Alfredo Trevino. Moving out now to the Madison Square Garden Theatre in New York, USA. This one, of course, a top-ranked show. We get to see over here Shakur Stevenson, 13-0, defend his WBO World Featherweight title against Miguel Mariaga. Mariaga, obviously, better known really for his losses to Lomachenko, to Oscar Valdez and to Nicholas Walters. Only one of those 3 guys, though, put him away, and that was Lomachenko when he decided to retire on his stall after 7 rounds. But, he gave a decent fight to Lomachenko, he gave a decent fight to Oscar Valdez, and he didn't really give a decent account against Nicholas Walters, to be honest. But he's a good fighter. He's a big puncher. It's a test again for Shakur Stevenson. A lot of people were criticising this one when it got announced. I couldn't understand why. It's a very good first defence in my opinion. And I know that Shakur Stevenson will be trying to get him out of there quicker than Lomachenko. And if he does that, then he makes a statement. It's as simple as that. As boxing fans, we should get behind Shakur Stevenson. If you don't like him outside of the ring, that's absolutely fine. But what he does inside of the ring, he does the right things. He wants the big fights. He's calling out the big names, and he'll fight anyone, and he's got an exciting style. I knew he was going to be, a dead certain world champion when he turned pro, and he's already delivered on that. Also on the undercard, we get to see Jesse Magdaleno, 27-1, take on Sakaria Lucas, who's 23-0. That's over 10 rounds there. Sakaria Lucas, another kind of unknown, really, from Namibia. We mentioned Indongo a few minutes ago. He's kind of that same, that same kind of category. Obviously not really proven on the world stage like Indongo was, but this guy could be very good. 23-0, 16 KOs. Jesse Magdaleno, if he hasn't trained properly, it could be quite a tough ask there. Moving out now to the Madison Square Garden Theatre. So the same venue as the Shakur Stevenson fight, but this one actually takes place on Tuesday, the 17th of March. So by the time the show goes out next week, this fight would have already taken place. It's going to be, of course, St. Paddy's Day. Of course, who else to be headlining apart from Michael Conlan? Michael Conlan, 13-0. He takes on Belmar Preciado, who's 20-2 with a draw, 13 KOs. He's got a loss to Hiroshige Osara, and he's also got a loss to Maurizio Martinez. 2 unknowns, really. The one standout name, I guess, on his record is Franklin Manzanilla, who he actually beat in a split decision over 8 rounds. I think at one point Manzanilla was supposed to be boxing Shakur Stevenson, but the fight never really happened. But he's not a brilliant fighter anyway, so it's another mismatch really, another fight there for Conlon to look good in. There's no details as of yet about the undercard, so I can't really speak on that. So yeah, that's the preview part done very quickly. That is it then for all the talking this week. The final thing to do from myself is to welcome, just before we wrap up part 2, our second and final guest on this week's podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the former IBF Featherweight World Champion. It is, of course, Mr. Lee Selby. Lee, welcome back on the show, my man.
Nice one, thanks for having me, mate.
Always a pleasure speaking with you, Lee. So we last spoke back in September, just before the Ricky Burns fight. How do you kind of assess your performance that night, Lee?
It was a decent performance against, a quality operator. Ricky Burns, obviously a freeweight world champion, wealth of experience, knew all the little tricks. He'd been in with top class fighters, and yeah, I thought it was a decent performance against a quality opponent.
And obviously, you were a true world-class fighter at featherweight. Your boxing on the outside, your slickness, your footwork, just your overall skills, arguably second to none at featherweight. But as we know, you were killing yourself to make the weight, so much so that you moved up not 1 but 2 weight classes. You had the fight with Omar Douglas. I think you admitted yourself it wasn't one of your best nights. Then the fight with Ricky Burns. It shouldn't have been a majority decision in my eyes. I thought you won clear. But do you feel you've made the impact on the lightweight division that you thought you'd make, Lee?
Not really, no. The first fight with Omar Douglas, the British fans didn't really know him, but he was a top fighter. I got cut badly over both eyes, so I had to scrape through that one. But he was a top fighter. All you got to do is look back at some of his fights on YouTube, and you'll see he's a dangerous puncher, putting them away with the left hook. So he was a quality operator. And like I said, I was cut over both eyes, so it was a bit of a struggle. And then Ricky Burns, no one's convincingly beat Ricky Burns like a shutout. Terence Crawford, he lost to Terence Crawford, but still won a massive. He didn't give him an eye or nothing. He was still competitive all the way through the fight. So he was a good fighter, and I didn't. There was times in the fight where I could have stepped on the gas, and I didn't execute as well as I should have. But hopefully in this next fight it all comes together. I can win this, and I'm back in the world title fight.
And you mentioned your next fight. Let's start with the location. Back in Wales, in Cardiff, for the first time in 6 years. How will it feel to be back, and will it force you to raise your game slightly, Lee?
Oh, it'll be great. Not just for myself, but for the Welsh fans. They've travelled all around the country, mainly up to the O2 Arena, and it's quite expensive to travel up, stay overnight in a hotel, pay for the fight tickets. So it'll be good to give back to them. And, coming out to your home fans, cheering you on, it's bound to give me that lift.
And, of course, you're boxing George Kambosos Jr, a guy that, we know has done hundreds of rounds sparring Manny Pacquiao. He's undefeated in 18 fights. He's a highly touted young fighter. Do you know much more about him, or do you not know too much?
Yeah, I know enough. I've seen him on YouTube. He's really untested. His best win was against Mickey Bay, who was a former world champion, and I watched him win the title actually, and he was sort of gifted. No disrespect to Mickey Bay, he's a good fighter, but he sort of got gifted the title. I think he boxed Miguel Vasquez, got gifted the title, and he lost in his first defense. And he had a close fight. It was a majority fight, a majority decision. It could have went either way. I think the Kambosos scored a knockdown, and that was a decider. And Mickey Bay, he might have been 36 years old. He'd been inactive, and he had a really close fight with him. Yeah, I've seen Kambosos saying he's going to knock me out and he's going to do this. And surely you can't think Mickey Bay's a better fighter than I am. All you got to do is look at my accolades and my achievements, just see I'm a better fighter. And also, I've shared the ring only a few rounds, sparring in a wildcard with him.
Oh, that's interesting.
Back in 2017.
Okay, that is interesting. How did that go, or can you not really speak much on it?
Same as always. He sparred before, I'll be honest, he sparred before me. He did look good. He sparred with a Scottish fighter who was a southpaw.
you hadn't had any pro fights, I don't think. It's still an amateur. And of course, you're open to a right uppercut as a southpaw. And George Kambosos throws a good uppercut in close. And he kept hitting the boy with the uppercut, bloodied up his nose, and he did look good. So I upped my game, and it just went like, the sparring always goes, and we just outboxed him.
And a statement that George said, he said, Lee Selby's already been a world champion. He's lost the hunger. I want him to remember when he was a 26-year-old hungry fighter just before he won his world title. That hunger he had is the hunger that I have now. I'm going to kind of react to that and say, to be honest, Lee, I think if you'd have lost your hunger, I don't think you'd still be boxing. I don't think you're the type of guy that would hang around longer than, after your hunger runs out.
If I didn't want to be boxing, or I'm financially secure, I've earned a fortune through boxing, and like I've invested my money, I've got loads of properties and stuff, so I've got a regular income coming in, so I don't need to box. I do it because I want to box. And like, if he's hungry, I'll feed him as much leather as he likes.
And we didn't actually get to see you both do a face-off at the press conference, but if the online stats are correct, you'll be giving away a slight height advantage, probably for one of the first times in your career. If the stats are right, does that change anything at all, Lee?
Well, it would, but the stats ain't right. There's no
the stats are never right. I think you're a lot taller than it says you are.
Well, for years I was 5'5.5" on BoxRec. So like, I could see the look on my opponent's face when they turned up and meet me. They had the head-to-heads, and then they got like a 5'9" guy in front of them. They were shocked. They were expecting a 5'5" midget. Yeah, they're wrong. I'm the bigger guy, and I'll be the bigger guy on the night.
I like how you say they see a guy that's about 5'9". You're still not even telling us the true height. We'll leave it a secret. A win here, Lee, is always important. But is there any more importance to get the win in this fight in particular at all?
Well, it's the most important fight of my career. If I win this, I'm back in a world title fight, which could be a super fight with either Teofimo Lopez or Vasily Lomachenko. So it's the most important fight of my career. At this stage of my career, it's a must-win fight.
And last time we spoke, I'm pretty sure you predicted that Shakur Stevenson would take over the featherweight division. I'm pretty sure you said that. That was before he'd actually become a world champion. Now he is one. But I saw a statement earlier this week that you had said Kid Galahad's the best featherweight in the world. Which one is it?
Well, the guy who asked me, he was on about the British fighters. You mentioned Carl Frampton, Josh Warrington. And yeah, so... Well, I say Kid Galahad. Okay. But that'd be a great matchup, Shakur Stevenson and Kid Galahad.
Okay, I got you.
Be a great fight.
I got you. And now that you're a lightweight, I must ask, should the top-rank super fight take place, Teofimo Lopez versus Vasily Lomachenko, you're eyeing up the winner. How do you see that fight unfolding, though, if they were to dance?
It's a difficult one. Lomachenko will be the favourite. But Teofimo Lopez, he's younger, he's fresher, he's a dangerous puncher. And he can box. So I'd have to say it's a 60-40 to Lomachenko, but I wouldn't be surprised if Teofimo pulled it off.
Okie dokie. And as always, whenever we speak, I must ask about your brother Andrew. How is he, and when will we hear an announcement about his next fight?
To be honest, I'm not too sure what he's up to at the minute. I'm not too sure. You'd have to give him a bell and see what he's saying.
Okie dokie. All right, Lee, and just finally, my man, any closing words before we let you go?
Just same as usual. Thanks to the fans for their continued support, and I'm gonna try and bring my best on fight night and give you all a good show.
Listen, Lee, it is always a pleasure speaking with you, my man. I truly mean that. Best of luck for May 9th, and we'll catch up sometime after.
Nice one. Thank you very much.
Okay, and this wraps up episode 230 of the BoxHard Podcast. I've been your host, Joey Coastman. Ayaz Sumra has been Ayaz Sumra. A massive thank you to our two guests on this week's show, the former IBF Featherweight World Champion Lee Selby and the former IBF Light-Heavyweight World Title Challenger Callum Johnson. The Prediction League after last weekend remains exactly the same. We all backed Scott Quigg to beat John O'Carroll on points, so no one gained anything there. There will be the Prediction Leagues coming back real soon. Enjoy your weekends though, people. That is everything from me. Thank you all again for listening, and we shall see you all again next week.